This entitled mom thinks she can run her daughter's love life, even when she is 25 years old. But things come to a crazy climax when the mother demands to start living with her daughter and her boyfriend in their tiny flat. Happy birthday if today's your birthday, and on with the revamped show. I'm 24 female and have been dating my 25 male boyfriend for 9 years. This is important later on. My mother is an older woman. She had me at 40 years old, and I have 3 older brothers, one of which is 9 years my senior. Let's call him G. He went to college and obtained his bachelor's in accounting. I got my bachelor's in social work, and I'm in graduate school for higher education, all of which I have paid for out of pocket. I have over 70k in loans because my mother was going through hard times, although she has land and houses in other states and Jamaica. In short, G and my mum hate my boyfriend and have always hated him. We started dating in high school, and he was very respectful of my mother, but she said my spirit doesn't like him. She and my brother devised multiple plans to split us up, while my mother was always physically and emotionally abusive towards me and G growing up. The difference between me and G is that I never followed the path my mother wanted me to take. In turn, she would threaten to make sure I wouldn't get loans for college and barely helped me otherwise. It was completely different for G. He was able to get through college without debt, work at a job he hates, and now he has a wife and daughter. There are 2 stories of entitlement I want to get into, but I'll only post this one that's the most recent. This issue happened last November. My brother and his wife invited me to their baby shower. We live about 10 minutes away from one another, and of course my mother was invited. She lives about 9 hours away, and she needed someone to host her for the time being. I asked her to stay at my brother's house because I am currently living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend and 2 cats. There's just not enough space for us, let alone her. She also disrespects him constantly, even though I tell her how much I love him and that I will not be leaving him anytime soon. I knew that this would cause conflict because it always does. She said that she swore that she wouldn't cause any problems and that she's only staying for a few days, so it doesn't matter. I reluctantly told my boyfriend that she was coming to stay with us, and he was furious. I told him that there was no stopping it, unfortunately, and we just have to put up with her for 3 days. He begrudgingly agreed, but told me that if she starts any issues, that she can't stay with us. Fast forward to the day of her arrival. It was midterms, and I had a huge paper to write. I was working 3 jobs at the time, and I was exhausted. At the time, my boyfriend was working part-time as a front desk assistant while I go to school. He pays majority of the bills while only working part-time. I came home and called her to see when she would be arriving. She told me that she was at G's house and that she won't be arriving for another 6 hours. I sighed with relief because I could take a much needed nap before cleaning up the house. My boyfriend and I slept for a bit, and then my phone rings. It was my mother. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I look at the clock in panic. It had only been 2 hours, not 6. I jumped up and told my boyfriend. He was so unimpressed. She arrives and here it goes. "This place is filthy. Don't you care about your home? I can't stay in a place like this. OP, take this boy to the store and buy proper cleaning supplies so that I can clean this place." I told her that I had just come from a 12-hour day of classes and work and that I was too tired to go to the store. I told her that I washed her sheets and got her a pillow in order for her to be comfortable on the couch. We can figure out cleaning the next day. She was irate. "No, you're going to go to the store now because I'm your mother and I'm telling you to. I will not stay in a filthy home." Mind you, we pre-cleaned to make sure both litter boxes were clean and made sure the common area was pretty decent for her to reside. While she was screaming, one of my cats decided to commit the ultimate sin, going to the bathroom. "OP, that's disgusting. Clean this now. I will not sleep next to this cat crap." I told her that she knew I had 2 cats and that we can't scoop right after they use the bathroom every time. I gave up arguing and practically dragged my boyfriend to the store and used my last $30 to buy cleaning supplies. We didn't have a lot of money at the time. We get back to the house and she has completely destroyed it. In the 45 minutes it took us to get to the store, she had pulled everything from its place. place. The kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, and my closet. Everything was in a pile on the floor. The cats were nowhere to be seen because they were terrified of this stranger coming in and destroying their home. My boyfriend was livid, mostly because in her reign of chaos, she emptied out the cat's food and water dish. He asked her why she did that, and OMG guys, she took off. "How dare you ask me any questions, boy? You're the reason why she's living like this. You don't do anything, and I will spit on you as soon as I'm done here." I sat down with a mix of shock, anxiety, and exhaustion while they argued back and forth with each other. She's calling him a bum and a piece of crap, and he's telling her that she has no right to come into his home and disrespect us both. She laughed and told him that she'll call G, and they can fight it out. My boyfriend told her that if that man comes near him, or I, that he won't be walking away without severe injury. She used that and called G, telling him that, "I'm not safe here, that boy is threatening my life, and your sister isn't doing anything about it." I told her to give me the phone, and I calmly told him that I would drop our mother at his house and that he would have to deal with her. He is irate and screaming that he's coming over to kick my boyfriend's butt and all of this crap. I told him to stop and calm down. He hung up on me after telling me that he's on his way over to my apartment. I'm panicking at this point, and my boyfriend picks up her bags to happily walk them downstairs for her. She grabs at the bags and tells him not to touch them. They argue until my brother calls my mother to come downstairs. I pick up her bags to get her out, and she knocks them out of my hands and runs downstairs. She brings my brother to my door, and I tell them from behind the door to leave or else I would call the police. They say they just want to get her bags, and I slightly crack the door open to toss them out. G then rushes the door, pushes me down, and runs into my apartment to get at my boyfriend. My boyfriend goes into our bedroom to protect himself, and my brother kicked down my bedroom door. No bullcrap, straight off the hinges. My boyfriend is in the room, not surprised, and proceeds to pull his pocket knife out and tells him to back up or he's getting sliced. My brother is a pansy and jumps behind our mum for protection. They argue back and forth, and I'm looking at my property damage and I scream, "Get out of my house, get out!" They then take my gifts for the baby shower, and my brother yells, "OP, don't come tomorrow, you're not welcome at the baby shower." They leave and my house is a mess. By the way, I forgot to mention that my mother started taking pictures of the mess that she made in order to tell people that I was living in an awful situation, which wasn't the truth. Luckily, I grabbed her phone and deleted the pictures. The aftermath. A few days go by and my brother calls me to tell me that he will no longer be paying my phone bill, and I begged him not to cut it off because I was already broke and having a hard time keeping up with the bills already. I also have had the same number for years, and I didn't want to change it. I told him that he has to pay for the property damage that he did to my home, and he hung up on me and disconnected my phone within 30 minutes of asking for compensation. Luckily, I figured this would eventually happen, and I saved enough money to start my own plan. I haven't spoken to him since. My mother and I have not mended our relationship. I blocked her number and her email address in order for me to check on her when I'm ready. I started to call her once a week to make sure she was okay, and it began to dawn on me that this has been my life for years, and that I wasn't going to take it anymore. I stopped calling. She started crying every day and telling people to get in contact with me, even to the point of threatening to tell my aunt not to speak to me anymore if I didn't call her, and that God will stop caring for you if you keep treating me this way. I have had to go to therapy, and I demanded that she pay for my door. She agreed, and she paid for the damages. Whenever there is some type of outbreak, including a standard flu season, my mother will latch onto it and use it as an attempt to control me. COVID has been no different and might actually be worse than any other time. EM hates any time I leave the house, even before quarantine. Unless it was for work, I would always be heckled and harassed for going out. Need to get new clothes? Why do you have to go out? Needed to get out of the house in the middle of winter? You don't always need to go out, you know. Needed to visit a friend in a crisis, or to visit my long-term partner. You never think about us. Now, with the pandemic happening, she's gotten much worse. Between March and June, I was at home every single day. I never left for anything. At the beginning of quarantine, I tried going for walks because I knew it would be good for my mental and physical health. My mother screamed at me that I was putting the family at risk by going out. Now, where I live, it's fairly easy to go for a walk and avoid people. I even took a mask just in case people got too close, carried sanitizer with me, and changed or washed my clothes as soon as I came into the house. It finally got to a point where she wouldn't allow me outside the house and said I could only do my walking in the backyard. Our backyard is large enough for a circular pool or shed and a raised garden bed. When I started doing it every day, she complained that I was going to wear paths in the ground and demanded I stop. So I gave up on my walks. I complained to my friends about this as my weight began to climb and my mental health was taking a hit. One offered to do yoga through a video chat and I happily accepted. The first session went over well and I was happy to do more. The second time, I warned my parents that I would be busy doing yoga. Well, my mother completely disregarded my warning and decided to barge into my room, talking to me about some type of decoration she wanted to put up. She saw what I was doing and walked away. I apologized to my friend and we carried on. Third time, I warned my mother again, and then she started complaining.
I don't see why you need to do that. Don't you have other things you should be doing?
This is something I need to be doing. This is good for my well-being. My mother let out a dramatic sigh.
You spend all time on that computer. You think I should just leave you alone for an hour? You could help us with chores or make dinner for us.
I should note that when she says I spend all day on the computer, she's referring to the fact that I was working from home during quarantine. She knows this and knows that I cannot just walk away to help her with household chores. I understand her frustration, however, I am doing my job. Anyway, this caused an argument about me doing yoga on the computer. Over the next week, she kept bringing it up and how it's silly, a waste of time, how I need to be more useful, and how I'm always on the computer. The day before, I told my friend I had to stop because I was upsetting my mother. I should also mention that my mother was home from her seasonal job since November and wouldn't go back until May. My mother always acted like she was always cleaning on her days off and couldn't handle all of it. I watched her and made mental notes of what she was doing. My mother's typical schedule was to wake up, drink coffee, watch the news for a few hours, take a nap, get up, start dinner, watch TV with my dad, and go to bed. When she would do the work, she'd complain and scream at me. I would help out when I could, but it was never enough. I would clean the bathrooms for her.
Why didn't you clean the kitchen too?
I would water the garden and take care. Well, we have well over 100 plants in the front and backyard. Tend to the strawberry patch, prune and harvest the vegetables.
Why didn't you do the dishes?
It was never enough, and it got to the point where I gave up. I know, shame on me. Things continued to get worse. I started getting pulled away from my laptop so I could take care of things for my parents. And yes, she was still very aware that I was supposed to be working. At one point she was mad at me because I didn't stop work to talk to her about dinner and start it while I was still on the clock. Another time she got mad at me for using the bathroom. This one boils my blood because we have 2 bathrooms, but she refuses to use the other one for unknown reasons. She got mad at me for closing the door when I needed to change my clothes and accused me of hiding something from her. If I ate food, it was an argument. If I didn't eat food, it was an argument. If I wanted to take a shower, I had to wait until they went to bed, just in case she needed the bathroom. If I decided to draw or work on my crafts, I'd get screamed at to do something productive. If I tried to take a nap, I got screamed at to do something productive. If I did something productive, I'd get screamed at to be more productive. It finally got to the point where if I wasn't working, I was laying in bed, staring at my wall. Messages from my friends were the highlights of my day, and I was not shy about telling them what was going on. When June came around, I was depressed. I didn't want to go out of bed and I cried a lot. I think I worried my friends because somehow we started making plans to do socially distanced activities. My mother was back at her seasonal job and my dad was either gone at work or sleeping most of the day for work. He switches shifts each week. week. Anyway, I would hang out with them for a few hours before I went home. Was it a risk? Yes, and I was always afraid after every visit, but I needed it. Seeing them helped and allowed me to escape the house for a little while. Demands continued to get worse at the house, and I started asking work if I could go back at least for a few days. They agreed, as we were really far behind and they needed the help. I made it so I would work from home when my mother was at work and went to the office when she was home. That caused problems. Even though my mother was working, my presence at my job was putting the family at risk. Somehow I was the one who was more likely to be contaminated. Mind you, I have almost zero contact with the public with my job. We are required to wear our masks whenever we are not at our desks. We have sanitizer all over the place and we clean everything in the morning to keep it safe. My mother has contact with the public and people are not required to wear masks. My father works at an industrial facility. My friends decided to do a once a week thing where we could all get together and either talk, watch movies, work on our projects, and do things that can maintain some distance but remain close. This has been my lifesaver as it has helped maintain my sanity. I would often complain about the things my parents would say or do during the week. I feel so bad for how often I would vent and nearly break down. Every week I had something to tell them. They listened intently and would do their best to help. Whenever they had something happening, I would always listen and try to help too. You can bet my mother made comments about this too. She would often try and convince me not to go and would say that I was again putting the family at risk. Things continued like this for a while. We sometimes have a fourth person at our table, sometimes not. We decided that for Halloween we were going to watch movies, chat, eat candy, and have a good time. I told my mother about this, and she made the comments.
"You're putting us all at risk by doing this. Why don't you ever think about your father and I? You refuse to take this seriously and are only thinking about yourself. You have a higher chance of surviving this if you get sick."
1. You put us at risk more by going into work. 2. I take precautions at every chance I get. The only times I can't always is when people insist on ignoring social distancing.
Why is it always an argument with you?
2 days before Halloween, my mother was waffling on about handing out candy. I said I wouldn't do it this year, it was too risky. She agreed, then disagreed, then changed her mind, then decided to go through with it. I gave up on it and figured she would do the right thing considering how concerned she was about it. So I went to my friend's place and we had a good time. This morning I was talking with my mother and of course, she brought up how I put the family at risk going to my friend's place. She also made a comment about how there had been a lot of kids last night. You handed out candy?
Yes, I did.
Then I don't want you to say that I'm the one putting us at risk.
It's different. I was wearing a mask and I sanitized my hands so much it dried them out.
Yeah, if any of those people had it, you just let it into the house.
Well, I handed it to them as far away as I could, and they were all wearing masks.
Then I don't ever want to hear how I'm putting us all at risk by seeing 2 people at their house and taking precautions again. I tuned her out at this point and she went off about it. Something about being disrespectful and something about how she wouldn't treat her mother this way. It's pretty frustrating when you're in situations like this where it's literally a lose-lose situation. She's expected to do more work, but when she does work, that work is not good enough. So what is she supposed to do? She doesn't do work, she loses. She does do work and she loses as well. There's literally no correct answer for her, and that's the problem. That's the game the entitled mother wants to play, because then no matter what, she always wins.
Submit your story to be read on the channel at VoiceyHereStories@gmail.com and join our Voicey veteran community at r/VoiceyHere. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. Alright, Voicey veterans, I'll see you in the next one.